Assalamu alaikum dear students. Our today's topic is how basic data is collected, some statistical methods, modes of data collection. You see, when basic data is to be collected from its primary source, how do we do it? It involves the study of a set of statistical methods or statistical techniques. We will discuss here some of the methods of collecting primary data. Number one is direct personal investigation. Number second is indirect oral investigation. The third one is information from local sources or correspondents. And fifth one is information through questionnaire and schedules. It includes a mailing method and enumerated method. In this first part, we will discuss the first two methods of collecting primary data. Number one is direct personal investigation and indirect oral investigation. And in the second part, we will discuss the other two. See, what is the direct personal investigation? What is the direct personal investigation? The direct personal investigation is the method by which data are personally collected by the investigators from the informants. In other words, the investigator established the direct relation with the person from whom the information is to be obtained. The success of this method requires that the investigator should be very diligent, he should be very efficient, impartial, and tolerant. See, uh, first you need to know what is investigator, who is investigator, and who is respondent. What do you mean by these two terms? Investigator is a person who plans and conducts an empirical investigation independently or with the help of others. And the respondent is a person who responds to the set of questions included in the questionnaire. These are the two terms you need to understand. Now, here we are discussing about the direct personal investigation. See, I told you that when when you need a direct contact with the workers of industry to obtain the information about the economic conditions, we need this method, direct personal investigation method, right? And what is the suitability of this method? This method is suitable particularly when the field of investigation is limited or not very large, and also it's suitable when the great degree of originality of the data is required, and when information is to be kept secret, when the accuracy of the data is of great significance, and when the direct contact with the informant is required. Okay, now what are the merits of this method? The first merit of this method is originality. You know, data have a high degree of originality. Why? It's because the investigator personally collected the investigation and collect the information from the informants. So we can say that the data have a high degree of originality. The second is its accuracy. Now you know that when the investigator collects the information himself, so data are fairly accurate, right? When personally collected. Number third one is reliability. Now because the information is collected by the investigator himself, so the reliability of the data is not doubted. Okay, it must be reliable data. Another point we will discuss here, related information. See, when in direct contact with the informants, the investigator may obtain other related information as well by contacting him directly. And another point is uniformity. There is fair degree of uniformity in the data collection by the investigator himself from the informants. It facilitates comparison, and of course it's elastic. That method is elastic, it's fairly elastic, because the investigator can always make necessary adjustment in his set of questions. These are some of the merits of direct personal investigation. And what are its demerits? It's difficult to cover wide areas. See, direct person investigation becomes very difficult when the area of the study is very wide. You know why? Because he cannot personally contact everybody. In this method, direct person method, it's difficult to meet everybody personally and collect information. So here it's very difficult to cover wide areas through this method. And another point here is personal bias. This method is highly prone to personal bias of the investigator, and as a result, what happens? The data may lose its their credibility, right? And it's also costly. This method is very expensive in terms of time, money, and efforts involved. You see, so this data is this is also one of the demerit of this method, direct person investigation. And it has another point, demerit here is limited coverage. In this method, the area of investigation is generally small, because I have already told you earlier, you cannot cover the wide areas through this method by contacting everybody personally. With the direct contact, it's impossible to contact directly through this method, because you cannot cover large areas or wide areas through this method. So we can say the results are therefore less representative. This may lead to wrong conclusions. Now the second method of collecting primary data is indirect oral investigation. What is indirect oral investigation? Indirect oral investigation is the method by which information is obtained not from the person regarding whom the information is needed. It's collected orally from the other persons who are expected to possess the necessary information. See, these other persons are known as witnesses. For example, by this method, the data on the economic conditions of the workers may be collected from the employers rather than the workers themselves. So, it is suitable when the field of investigation is relatively large, when it is not possible to have direct contact with the concerned informants. It's also suitable when the concerned informants are not capable of giving information because of their ignorance or illiteracy. Uh, it's also suitable when the investigation is so complex in nature that only experts can give information. And this method is mostly used by the government or non-government committees or commissions. Now, what are the merits of this method? Wide coverage. You see, this method can be applied even when the field of investigation is very wide. Why? Because you don't need to meet the informants, you don't need to contact them personally. You can get the information from the others who possess that their knowledge. I have already given you example earlier about, suppose if you want to know the economic conditions of the workers of an industry, you can get it from their employer. You don't need to contact workers. You don't need to contact workers directly. You can get the information from their employer. So we can say through this method we can cover a wide area, right? And it's also less expensive. It's a relatively less expensive method as compared to direct personal investigation. Why? Because direct personal investigation, it involves, you need a lot of money is involved in that method. A lot of time is needed through that method, for that method. But here it's relatively very less. You don't need that much of time, that much of money is not involved in this method. And you also, another point here is its method, it's one of the merit is expert opinion. Using this method, an investigator can seek the opinion of the experts and thereby can make his information more reliable. Okay, and it's also free from bias. This method is relatively free from the personal bias of the investigator, right? And it's very simple approach of the data collection. This is relatively a very simple approach of the data collection. Now, what are its demerits? It's less accurate. The data collected by this method are relatively less accurate. This is because the information obtained from persons other than the concerned informants. There is also the possibility of personal bias of the witnesses giving information. And when there is personal bias of the witness giving information, we can say that this method may also lead to doubtful conclusions, or it may lead to doubtful conclusions also due to the carelessness of the witnesses. So what we have learned through these two methods, and direct personal investigation and indirect oral investigation, and you see the difference between the direct personal investigation and indirect oral investigation is that in case of direct personal investigation, the investigator establishes direct contact with the informants. On the other hand, in case of indirect oral investigation, information is obtained by contacting other than those about whom the information is sought. Second point here is the direct personal investigation is generally possible when the field of investigation is small. On the other hand, indirect oral investigation is generally preferred when the field of investigation is relatively large. And third point, we can say indirect personal investigation. The investigator must be well versed in the language and cultural habits of the informants because he need to contact them directly. There is no such requirements in the case of indirect oral investigation because he is getting information from other persons called witnesses. And the fourth point is direct investigation is relatively costlier than the indirect investigation. And thank you very much.